So today I want to talk about Galion Audio as well as the new P75 preamp. Now this is a preamp that uses tubes. It's very affordable at around $1,800 US. Now Galion sent me this for review. I hooked it up to their A75 power amp. I've also hooked it up to other amps, and I'm going to talk about all of that in this video. As far as the product goes, I can talk about the marketing blurbs, right? Like this was created to be a perfect match to the A75 power amp, that this sounds like a much more expensive preamp. It produces a holographic sound stage, uses exotic capacitors for maximum fidelity. The body that's added to the mid-range, the bit of warmth, along with the high resolution and high quality components inside. I can also talk about the way Thomas spent countless hours with prototypes and voicing this preamp, tossing out previous versions until it was right where he wanted it to be. I could talk about all that, but that's what everybody talks about. So instead, in this video, I want to talk about my experience with Galion Audio, as well as a review of that P75 preamp that I've been listening to for weeks, along with the A75 power amp. Now, I've done a review of the A75 power amp, but I appreciate it now, today, more than I did then, because of what this little P75 tubed preamp has done for it. So let's get started here. So Galion Audio. Now, Galion was started by Thomas Tan. Thomas is a YouTuber. He reviews audio gear right here on YouTube, just like I do, just like many other great people who do this to keep this hobby alive. That's why I do it, because it's a remarkable hobby. It feeds my heart and soul. It de-stresses me. It relaxes me. It makes me feel good at the end of a day when I'm sitting in my chair listening to some mellow tunes. And on days when I want some energy, I can listen to some hard rock and headbanging tracks to get my energy up. I love listening to music. And I have learned that Thomas, the guy who started Galion, the YouTuber, the reviewer, he has that same passion within him. Now, when he started Galion, I know he got some flack from some people online because a YouTube audio reviewer all of a sudden starting his own line of electronics and speakers and extras now, cables now, power cables, speaker cables. And a lot of people saw it as him just trying to make a quick buck where he could promote his own products. Now, I took the other train of thought. I was all for that. I was like, finally, somebody who has listened to tons of gear. Thomas has listened to all kinds of preamps, from lower end to mid end to exotic, all kinds of amplifiers, all kinds of speakers integrated. Us reviewers here on YouTube, we get to hear a lot of gear. And I applauded Thomas for having the drive, the energy, and the guts to go forward and start Galion Audio, because his ears knows what he likes, and he knows what music, good sounding music, should sound like. So he started out Galion Audio with a bang, and one of the first products I heard from him was the A75 power amp, which he deemed a giant killer. So I remember seeing Thomas's video on the A75 where he was hyping it to no end, and I'm like, okay, he's hyping it a lot. Is it really that good? I'll get more into the A75 as we go on. But what I found with Thomas, and after reviewing several of his products, I've reviewed a couple of his speakers, a couple of his tube integrated amps, the A75 and today the P75. And one thing that I found is that Thomas and Galion Audio are really, truly out there to create a stunning product that really kicks above its price point to sound remarkable for much lower cost than the competition. He's having these products designed and built, and he's voicing them, and he's making sure they are right. And then he's pricing them at such a great price where more and more people can afford to get into this hobby and not just get into this hobby, but get back high-end sound, right? I've been listening to this P75, which is $1,850 or something like that, along with the $1,500 A75 power amp, and I have them hooked up to some $24,000 speakers. Now, I've listened to these on lower-end speakers, mid-tier, and high-end. And this set of electronics at under $3,500 total. I have a Node Icon doing streaming and DAC duties. This is top-level sound quality. Now, if you look at the reviews, not only on Galion's website, but across the internet of his A75 power amp, it has received rave after rave after rave. And that is because it offers a stunning performance for that $1,500. You're getting holographic soundstage. You're getting a little bit of an airy treble. You're getting warmth in the mid-band. But it really depends. Now, the performance of that A75 really depends on the preamp that you're plugging into it. Now, I tried the A75 with a Passlabs XP22, a Passlabs XP10. I can't even remember all the preamps I tried into it, but I never heard it sound as good as I am right now with the P75. And I am just bowled over. Here's a quick thing. I prefer the sound of the 1850 P75 going into the A75 more than I liked the Passlabs XP22 going into the A75. And that XP22 is like 12 grand or something like that. Those are my thoughts on Galion. I love what Thomas is doing. He's a great, honorable guy as well. So let's get into the P75 tubed preamp. So this uses tubes. The tubes are not exposed. You can access the tubes by taking off the top metal plate, just a few little screws, and you are in. And while we're talking about that, I was looking at the inside of the P75, and as I looked at all the quality capacitors, the quality workmanship in here, so when I first received the P75, I took it out of the box. I hooked it up to the A75 immediately. I was listening to the Devulet Astra, which I still have here, and I have deemed that as my favorite integrated amp of all time. But holy cow, guys, that thing's $20,000, $25,000, depending on the model you get. I was also listening to my Modrite Instruments KWA99s and LS99, which is a tube preamp and solid-state monoblocks. And those are both kind of in the higher end realm of pricing and quality. They're both beautiful, beautiful solutions, but they cost a lot of money. I was expecting the sound quality to kind of drop when I put in the A75 and the P75. I had the Martin Parker Duo speakers in first, which are 20-some thousand. I then tried with the Icon 12s, which are 24,000, and behind me now, I tried with the Buchard E50s as well, which are around $4,000 and more price appropriate to this combo. I'll talk about all of these, right? So I had the Martin Parker Duos in. I put in the A75 and the P75 using just those $30 interconnects I talked about a few days ago, or a few videos ago, I'm sorry. Those are some killer interconnects, guys, for 30 bucks. I love them. I opened up Tidal through the Node Icon, my Tidal playlist there at HiFi Huff. And again, I was in disbelief. There was such a sense of power, impact, drive. There was warmth, just as Galion advertises, warmth in the mids, a little bit of air in the treble. It wasn't crazy airy. It was nothing like the Devulet Astra, which is more about wide open sound, super transparency, and holographic imaging. The Galion was very musical, but it still had a holographic sound stage. It still brought a lot of punch and drive, and it just had this sense of effortless oomph, power. And I noticed that the P75 is not a low-gain preamp, where other preamps in the past that I've had, the Passlabs, the Nagra, what have you, they were all very low-gain to try to keep noise down, right? But you have to jack up the volume on those low-gain designs to get any meat, to get any drive, to get any groove. And I'm not a big, huge fan anymore of low-gain preamps. The Galion P75, I noticed immediately, is not low-gain. Just a little bit of volume. up to 8, 9 AM on the dial, and I was getting some crazy powerful sounds. Low volume listening, amazing, right? But let's go back to these Martin Parker Duo speakers that are over $20,000. They were sounding as good, but just different from the Devilé Astra. They were sounding as good, just a little bit different from the Modrite. Now, the Modrite and the Galion were close, but the Modrite has a little more transparency in the mids, not so much warmth in the mids, a little bit more air in the treble. But the Galion has thunderous bass that is controlled and tight. And I like that little bit of warmth in the mids, even if it sacrifices a little bit of transparency, and it's just a little bit, because it's providing a big room-filling, semi-transparent, semi-holographic, beautiful sound, but it doesn't compromise by taking away that ever so important drive in the mid-range. And it's advertised as that, as adding beef and body and warmth to the mid-range, and it does just that. Now, sometimes when you have a preamp like that, it can sound bloated, or the details may be less than, the bass could be sloppy or loose, and sometimes you're missing out on those ever so important details coming out. Now, with the Galion P75 and A75, you have that warmth and body, you have a beautiful soft kind of treble, it's not ear-piercing in any way, and you have thunderous tight bass. It's not super transparent, it's not analytical in any way, shape, or form, but you're still getting the beauty, the romance, the heart, soul-stirring sound that really helps my body, at least, to relax and unwind. Now, listening to any genre of music on this setup was sounding really good, but I wanted to see what this could do with my reference speakers, the Audio Icon 12s. Now, these are my spirit speakers. A lot of people say, this is my spirit animal. The Icon 12 is like my spirit speaker. These are just speakers that seem to have been built just for me. They may not be for everybody, but they have a big, majestic, full-bodied, airy, open, but yet they got that meat, they got that warmth in the mid-range, and they just project so beautifully. For me, I've never heard a better speaker. I was just in shock at how good this sounded. Now, this A75 amp was sounding way better than I remembered. It was so good before, but it was like over the top good now. And it was because of the P75 going into it. It shows that this combo can scale to great heights with even expensive speakers. I put in the Buchard E50s, and with the Devilé Astra at 25 grand, the E50s sound really good, lightning quick, totally different kind of sound from the previous Buchard, but they were a little lean sounding in the mid-range, right? The Devilé's not fat in the mid-range. It's not anywhere big-bodied in the mid. It's got a little bit. So putting the Galion in sounded actually better to me with those E50s because it added that warmth in the mids. It fattened them up, but I was still getting that great detail from the E50s, and I was getting the thunderous bass from the E50s. So those E50s from Buchard are beautiful speakers in looks, in design. I've had them here for many months, and with the Galion pairing, they were just beautiful. They were heart-touching, soul-stirring, but yet they had all the traits that E50 is known for. If you want to sharpen up the sound, if you want to make it a little bit less warm, just swap the tubes, experiment. That's what tube rolling is about. You can kind of fine-tune the sound by the tubes that you place in the machine. And the tubes in here, I believe, are 12 AT7s. They're pretty inexpensive. Even if you look for new old stock, some old tubes, which people love to do. I used to be into that game a little bit. You can really alter the sound and perfect it to your liking. But I wanted to review it just stock out of the gate, what you would get if you buy one. Now, I will say some people asked me about the noise floor, because usually when you get in that price range of $1,800 for a HiFi preamp, you might have some noise coming through your speakers. You might have some transformer buzz. I've seen it 100 times. When I had this pairing plugged in, the P75 I have here at least is silent. I put my ear up to it, I don't hear anything. The A75 has a little bit of transformer hum. If I go up to it and put my ear to it, I don't hear it from my listening seat. So I was hearing no noise from any of these speakers. Sometimes you hook up a piece of electronics and you'll hear hiss from the tweeter or a buzz. But, I'm not a fan of hearing noise from the speaker. So the good news is the P75 and the A75 here are producing no noise from my speakers whatsoever. So awesome with the high-end speakers, the Martin Parker Duos, the Icon 12s. Awesome with the speakers that were more in line with the price, the Bucard E50s. I was sitting here listening to music for the last 3 weeks or so with this combo. And I have the other amplifiers here. So I decided I'm going to plug the P75 into my Modrite KWA99 mono amps. Now, I reviewed these a while back. These are beautiful amplifiers. They emit a warm amber glow with the VU meter on the front. They're biased into Class A. It's either 10 or 20 watts in the Class A. I never leave Class A when I listen to these amps. The Modrite LS99 is a tube preamp, 3 exposed tubes up top. Beautiful pairing. This is an endgame setup if you want something made in the USA, high quality, looks and sounds beautiful. So I took out the LS99 and I put in the P75. Now, I do like the looks of the LS99 better, the big fat knobs, the exposed tubes, the metal switches. But looks-wise, the Galion is plainer. It's a black box. It has one knob. It has buttons for the inputs. It's RCA only. There's no XLR here. And that's it. Blue lights when it's on, a red light when it's in standby. I go to hook it up to the KWA99s, and again, blown away by the drive, the energy, the power, the sound. I was listening to some guitar acoustical recordings that are very immersive and spatial. Check out a band named Forest. They're kind of weird and unique. All of their songs are based on cats or dogs in their thumbnails, but they have some beautiful instrumentals in there that really melt my stress away. And I was listening to one of their newer tracks, and it was just filling the room in a spatial way. And it was doing that with the A75 too. The KWA99s were just a little more present. And I mean a little more present, a little more air in the treble, a little bit leaner in the mid-range, but not so much so because the P75 is adding that tube flavor as well, just like the LS99 did. Now, at the end of the day, the LS99 is $6,500. The P75 is like $1,850 or so. I slightly preferred the Modrite, but look at how much money you have to pay. And it was just a slight, I could easily live with the Galion and my Icon 12s as my forever system. I could. If I didn't do this channel, I could easily do that. But doing this channel, I'm always swapping out stuff to talk about it for you guys. That's why I swap out stuff all the time. So yeah, I was impressed with it into the A75, as well as going direct into my Modrite amps. Now, I did a written review at my website where I go deeper into comparisons. I compare it against the $25,000 Devulet Astra, and I talk about the differences there. I won't do that in this video, but there are big differences between something like the exotic Devulet Astra at $25,000 and the Galion at $30-some hundred. But you'd be surprised at what those differences are. You can read about that in my written review. I'll put a link in the description below. So at the end of the day, this P75 blew me away so much that I am keeping it here for future review purposes. That with the A75 amp are an incredible combo. And what makes them so special, what makes them so incredible, is the sound quality, the parts quality inside, and especially the price. We're finally able to get hi-fi gear that's not going to bankrupt us or make us get out a loan and pay crazy interest. I know a guy who spent $25K recently, put it on a credit card with 20% interest or something, and he hated the sound. He said it was too lean and sharp and analytical. And I said, well, you might not like that high-end exotic sound that some products bring, not all do. The Galion doesn't bring that. It brings a beautiful, warm, rich, spatial performance that is just awesome with any kind of music. It doesn't sound like an $1,800 preamp or a $1,500 amp. They sound more like $10,000, $20,000 pieces. Now, these are made in China, but they're sold through Galion and Thomas from Canada. They ship, I believe, from Canada. That's where Galion is based. But if he didn't have these made in China, these would cost thousands of dollars more. As a matter of fact, I would think if you put a glass faceplate on it, some green meters, and some green LED lights, that A75 might be $10,000, $12,000. The sound dictates that, okay? This is one of those rare deals in HiFi where you get a high-end sound, a really great product for a lower end price, but there's nothing low end about this. All right, I'll stop blabbing now. I could go on and on about Galion. I love what they're doing, and I look forward to seeing where Thomas takes it in the future. If you like this video, thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. I love you all. I thank you all for taking the time, especially if you made it to this part. And I'll see you in the next one.